Hello, hello. I'm going to be making a chocolate mix in the pan snack cake. So I'm going to start with flour. I'm doing a double batch. So I need 3 1/3 cups of flour. Single batch does an 8 by 8. I'm doing a 13 by 9. So that's just about double volume wise. And I don't care about the minor difference in height. So that's 1 cup. 2 cups. 3 cups. And 1/3. There we go. That's 3 1/3 cups of flour. Now, if I were doing this exclusively for myself, I might do a little bit of whole wheat. Probably not because it's a cake, but depends on my mood at the time. Alright, next we need brown sugar.
In the air.
Needs a little bit of breaking up because there's no chunks in there, but I'll handle that after I get it into the pan. So we need two cups. I'm probably just going to do 1 1/2 because I don't usually pack it down. And with the clumps, it's pretty packed down. And it's pretty close to a full cup, so. I'll just do a scant second cup. That'll work better. Also, since I'm not doing it just for myself, for my family, probably won't be a problem to have a little bit of extra sweetness in there. There's the second cup. A little bit of extras, add it in. Since I just washed the table, doesn't matter. All right, break up some of the chunks a little bit here. Wipe that off. Okay, I need cocoa powder. Single batch is a 1/4 cup, so I need a 1/2 cup. Check my sifting it in to the measuring cup. There we go. I'm going to take a mesh strainer here and just sift the cocoa powder in because the cocoa powder clumps are nearly impossible to get out once they've clumped up into your recipe. Take the spoon. There we go. Set that off to the side. Put the measuring cup from the cocoa powder in. Alright, I have the flour, the brown sugar, the cocoa. Need baking soda and salt for the dry ingredients. I'm going to just finish mashing up brown sugar chunks a little bit more.
Oh my goodness.
just about everything from that first cup of brown sugar all squished out and smoothed out.
Oh, got me too.
There's that. That cup of brown sugar is pretty well smoothed out. There we go. Come back to that. I'll come back to this once I have the, let's see, it's baking soda and salt. And with salt here, I need 1 teaspoon. One teaspoon of salt. Mix that off to the side. And then baking soda. I need 2 teaspoons. That's 1 teaspoon. There's 2 teaspoons. Move that off to the side. With the other ingredients that I've already used. Alrighty. I'm going to just spin this a little bit so I have better access to the brown sugar that needs to be decongested. Whatever the word is that I'm not sure what it is I'm looking for. Have the clumps broken up? That's probably a better way of saying it. Squish, squish, squish. Just squishing the clumps to the back of my spoon here. Mixing it in with the flour so it doesn't clump back together, because the flour will absorb the excess moisture. And flour is not sticky in the same way brown sugar is. So I'll stick to the brown sugar, but not to itself. I have never, in making a recipe for myself or my family, followed a recipe's recommendation to pack the brown sugar. I've always found that to make it way too sweet when I've made recipes to share with other people outside of my family. And there have been a few times I've made it the way I make it for myself, completely unpacked for people outside of our family, because I was going to be sharing it, and they didn't notice that it. They didn't say anything about, oh, this is not as sweet as I was expecting or anything like that. They always said it tasted just as good as, sometimes even better, than other recipes they'd had for the same dish. Alright, cocoa powder and the salt, baking soda all together.
Oh, jeez. Oi, 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 oi.
The brown sugar and the rest of the flour. Mixing very gently because the cocoa powder likes to fluff out of the pan. Oops. Like I was saying, it likes to fluff out of the pan. Now my nose is itching because I've got fluffed up cocoa powder in my nose. That's pretty well mixed. I'm just going to give it more stir with the spoon here before I start adding the wet ingredients. I love this recipe because I don't have to dirty a mixing bowl. It just all goes right into the same pan that I'm going to bake it in. I've already preheated the oven. Recipe calls for it to be at 350. So as soon as it's all mixed up, wet and dry together, I just have to pop it in the oven. And then sit and crochet while we're waiting for it to bake. There we go. All right, now I need 2 cups of water, which I already measured out. There's that. I need 2/3 of a cup of oil. Let's see, that side only has ounces, this side has half cup measurement. 2/3 of a cup is just over a half cup. So I'll do that. Dump in the oil. Let it drain. Alrighty. Now, to activate the baking soda, that's what's going to create the cake being a little fluffy, need vinegar. And I need 2 teaspoons. So I'm just gonna go splat. There we go. Probably a little more than 2 teaspoons, but not enough to cause a problem. And then I need 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Get a little more precise with that because vanilla does not pour the same way vinegar does. Alrighty. Set that up, set measuring some aside. I take my scraper and scrape the rest of the oil out of my measuring cup. Alrighty, there we go. I'm going to take my whisk. Just gently mix everything in. You can already see a little bit of the foam. That's from the baking soda getting wet and mixing with the vinegar, as well as the air that's in the flour and sugar and cocoa powder. Starting to get a little thicker. Stir that in. that's starting to come together now. Here's the tip of the whisk to scrape into the corners. Make sure there's no clumps of flour staying in the corners and tasting weird when I try and cut the thing like tomorrow. Hi, kitty. My cat's underneath the table, asking for attention. Who knows, she might join us while we're crocheting. Is my drink in your way? My drink was right next to her water dish, or food dish. That was what her problem was. She couldn't get to her food dish without knocking it over. She's a very considerate cat in that manner. She didn't want to knock it over. There we go. Right, I am now going to take a spatula. Whisk out of the way. Scrape down the sides with the spatula. Alrighty, time to go put this in the oven. I will be right back as soon as it's in the oven. Alrighty. It's in the oven. I'm going to clean up the little flour poofs. There we go. Set. We'll take your spoon and the cocoa powder contaminated stuff. Here's the sink. There's a little bit of brown sugar stuff. Alrighty. So now, it's just time to put away the ingredients. Hey, Fuzz Kitty. Alright, so I have my oil and my vanilla. And then I'm going to put away my very clumpy brown sugar. I do have a brown sugar saver somewhere. I just don't remember where it is. It got misplaced with our last move, so. So I just make do with what I have currently. I'm gonna put the flour and cocoa powder away next. then my baking soda. And next, go the vinegar and salt because those go on the opposite side of the kitchen. They're on the other side of the kitchen because they go over by the coffee machine. I use the vinegar to descale the coffee machine more than I use it to cook. So, and then I have a small spice cabinet next to the coffee machine. And that is where my salt stays. Which, honestly, I just literally have to turn around in order to get to the spice cabinet from my stove where I'm normally cooking. So, not that big of a difference. Alright. So now it's time to decide which crochet project I'm going to work on while I am waiting for the oven timer to go off. I have a bunch right here. So I have my baby dress project. Let's see, what else do I have in this basket? I have my Civil War, I think it's pronounced Sontag. It's essentially a shawl, but it wraps around you more than once. I started that at our last during our last reenacting weekend. That was a lot of fun. And then, let's see, I have a bunch of cotton yarn that I was going to turn it into either washcloths or do a collection of coasters. This has been on my hook the longest, so I think I'm going to stick with this baby dress here. Alright, last night I managed to start the next row of the lace. So what row of lace does that put us at? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's the 10th row of lace, which means I'm about halfway through the original plan lace-wise. Which actually wasn't the original plan, it was the toned-down plan of once I realized how long this was going to take me. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. When I originally started this project, I just went, oh, this is pretty yarn. This is the mom's favorite color. Let's make her baby a dress out of it. And let's make a size that fits my baby right now, so I have a model, so I can see how it looks. That was back in April. Currently working on this right now. It's the middle of October, so I get 4 months, 5 months, something like that. Close to 6 since I started it. That's what happens when you don't follow patterns and you don't have any idea of how long something's going to, you don't end up with any idea of how long a project's going to take. And you just go, and then you realize when you're halfway through how much time and effort you've already put in. And you just keep going because you don't want to waste that time and effort. And also because you love the person that you're making it for. So, been working on this off and on. when I have time. I've been working on it around the other projects that I've had to get done, and you know, life with 2 toddlers, family requirements, all of that stuff. 5, 6. This is the last stitch of this cluster. This is number 7. So I'm doing a shells and columns, or fans and columns, depending on how you learned it. There are a couple different names for the same stitch pattern. I'm doing a fan or shell of 7 treble crochets, and then I'm doing a pair of columns with a single chain in between them. This cone had a lot more yarn on it when I started. It was probably another ½ inch thicker. I'm gonna put it down on the floor so that it can come up without me having to pull on it at an awkward angle. All right, let's see. That's 4 stitches. 5.
8.
6. 7. So that's the shell of 7.
You have a what?
And then
What happened?
one of the columns, a single chain, and then the other column.
So I'm just gonna warn you, the beach is pretty rough right now.
1, 2, 3, 4. It's me right in the center of the previous shell. The shell on the previous row, however you want to phrase it there.
What's level 7 we're doing?
There we go. I'm going to move the yarn to the other side so it's going off of my
I was doing level 10 earlier. Doesn't matter to me.
correct side there.
Doesn't matter to me.
4.
We can say 7, that's fine.
6. Looks like I dropped part of a loop back here.
Yeah, because
funny here.
with the DSS here, it moved right after they captured the second plane on the major order.
Yes, you know, I'm just gonna go back and restart that. Sometimes trying to finagle the hook into the right spot.
One more planet to go, but I'm like the beach.
Not
I've been
worth
fighting on
it.
the beach.
Let's stitch 4.
Majority.
5. 6. 7. So I started out with the bodice. My goal was to have a pattern that was pretty much opaque. And I just went searching online for a pattern that I liked, stitch texture wise, and came across a tutorial on YouTube for, I think it was called the spiked sedge stitch. And it was a really pretty texture, and it was pretty solid. So I figured I'd start with that. I did a row of foundation double crochet.
Yeah.
I modified the pattern, the original tutorial, for a spiked sedge stitch called for a single double treble combination, and what I ended up doing was a double treble quad combination instead because of the size of the yarn. I knew it was going to be nearly impossible for me to see my stitches if I wasn't careful about this, how tall the stitches were. So I decided to go with a taller stitch just purely because of the size of the yarn, which basically I just added a loop of thread to my hook for each round. And then I did just a row of eyelet lace here, and then went back to the sedge stitch. And right at the bottom, I did I think it was a crossover. So I did one stitch this way and then did a stitch that way to create like little X's all along the bottom edge. And then I did just a treble crochet. Then I did another row of treble crochet, but increase of 1 to 3. So then just kept increasing it until I liked the fullness I was getting. And then I started doing the shells and columns. Hydration break. Don't forget to drink your water today. This project also caused me to need to figure out a different way to hold my yarn, my working end of the yarn, because I used to just purely hold it like this, and I couldn't put enough tension on the yarn because of how thin it is with just holding it like that. So I started weaving it through my fingers to create the tension without kinking my pointer finger. I have tried using tension rings, but they've never really worked for me, and this works to create the tension I need without the pressure on my fingers. It does still create, a little bit of friction across your finger, but works really well for being able to also adjust where exactly it's riding over my fingers. I'm using my rings as kind of a barrier on my ring finger so that the yarn doesn't rub too badly there. And if it's rubbing too much, I can always shift it to between my rings or above my rings. So and then the rings also help keep the yarn on my fingers without having to bend my fingers too much to hold it or anything. This yarn is splitting a bit, so I have to be careful about where exactly
I warped
putting my hook
through the flesh mob, but for some reason it had me stop right on it, and it killed us both.
Okay. If the camera jostled a little bit, that's because my yarn bumped into the tripod that I'm using here. My apologies for that. And that's 5 stitches to the cluster. 6.
Oh, what? It did it again! Goodness.
Another
Dead flesh mob. To the foot. Where I landed.
4.
This guy right here.
There we go. There's the next triple crochet fan. How fuzzy kitty. Adam. The dog and the cat are both looking for attention. Pet the doggy. Hi. Been having to work on this project in small chunks at a time, just because the size of the hook and the size of the yarn, my hands get a little crampy if I work on it for too terribly long, and I need really good lighting in order to see appropriately for the
One
small
walker's
yarn,
down. Both are down.
despite the fact that I have very good vision. Still need really good light.
Oh,
Partially because I don't want to strain my eyes and make it so I end up needing glasses in the future. One, two, three, four. I'm going through both loops of the
Sorry!
previous stitch. Create the strongest bond possible. Because given the fact that this dress is a 6 to 9 month size, approximately, it's going to need to be solid enough for the little cutie pie to be moving around in it. Because by the time they're 6 months old, they're probably not doing a lot of moving around. But by the time they're 9 months old, they're probably crawling around all over the place. And I want this to be wearable for the entire time she fits it. And I don't want her mom to have to worry about, oh, it's so delicate. I don't want to rip it.
My goodness, I am not having best of luck with this thing.
I want this to be something that, while not play clothes, is something that she'll wear.
I am so sorry, Jill.
She'll wear for pictures, or if they're going out, or, just about anything. If she wants to use display clothes, she wants to use display clothes. That's fine too. Because my goal is to have it be solid enough that she could, should she so desire. Alright, that's 6 stitches. There were a couple stitches in the previous, or a couple shells in the previous row that I had apparently miscounted and had only done 6 in the shell. And I was like, I am not going all the way back the previous row. Just add in 1 stitch. Especially considering it was towards the end of the row that I found out I'd done that in the previous row. And each row is taking me a significant amount of time because there's over 1,000 stitches per row.
Yeah.
That's 3. 4. 6.
Can you stem me if you have stems?
7.
Thank you.
Each shell and column cluster takes about 45 seconds to a minute, depending on how many times it gets messed up. And how many times I drop a stitch or split the yarn. It can take a little bit longer than that. Or if I miscount and have to go back and count 2 or 3 times, that happens fairly frequently too. So if we say a minute for the 9 treble crochets plus the chain in between, that means minute per cluster, and there's over 100 clusters in each row, which means that each row is taking me approximately 2 hours. So if you look back in my shorts history, you'll actually see that one of the videos was me doing the math on how long this dress was estimated to take.
I got hit with the bleeding.
From start to finish. And I estimated that if I'm doing 20 rows of the shells and columns ruffle, that it would take me about 80 hours. That's going at the pace I was going when I did the math. I don't know if that is still the pace I am going, or if I've been steady throughout that. I feel like I've taken more than the approximated 20 hours to do the 10 rows that I've done, the 9.5 rows that I've completed. But who knows, maybe my sense of time is not as accurate as the clock, which I know for a fact is the case because I have horrible time blindness. So 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm curious as to how much yardage this dress ends up using, which I don't really have a way to measure that because I don't have a label on the didn't have a label on the comb when I started this. It was given to me secondhand, so I'm not even sure what the fiber content is in this, but comb of yarn was given to me secondhand, so I don't know basically any of the facts about the yarn that I would normally have, like what the weight technically is, what the fiber content is, what, how many what's the yardage, what's the, how heavy was the yarn when they put it onto the cone, how much did it weigh, any of those details. But I did find out the wraps per inch, which you can then, once you have that information, you can translate that into the weight of the yarn. And that was, I approximated it at 38-ish wraps per inch. which anything over 35, I think it was, is a lace weight yarn. So it's just shy of sewing thread thickness, which I have worked with before, but not something that I would, not something that would generally be my first pick in working with yarns. I tend to prefer either a worsted weight or a crochet cotton. Both of those work out very smoothly for me, but I've been wanting to use this yarn for a while, and this was the perfect project for it, so that's what I'm doing. I'm going to take a quick break and go see how much time is left on that cake. See how long until the oven turns on. Alrighty, let's see. 12 minutes. Alrighty, there are 12 minutes left on the timer. So that means that cake will be done in approximately that amount of time. I have to check it at that point. So let's see. I need cake rack. That's what I need. Here is the cake rack. I will set that to the side. Also need a toothpick to test. Need a toothpick to test if it's done. So I'll set that there. Also need my oven mitts. Get those out so I don't have to go looking for them when it's time to take the cake out. Alrighty. There's that. Try to think if I'm gonna need anything in the short term. No, I think that's good for now. Alright. Leave the yarn back to my fingers. My stove timer has an alarm on it for 1 minute left. So that'll be perfect to give me time to go to set this down and go check out the put this down, get it out of the way so we can go check the cake.
No!
See, that's 3. Oops, did one too many. There we go. Done that a few times in the past rows and not caught it as well. In the event that I don't catch it, I just go between stitches. Or just grab whichever stitch I happen to feel like grabbing. Whichever one looks the closest to the center of the shell. I see one person has caught me live. Hello to you. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm working on a baby dress for a very dear friend of mine that I have been working on it for a good 4 to 5 months now. But every little bit of time I get to spend on it is more time I can spend praying for my friend. So I really enjoy being able to do this for her. Okay, that's 6 stitches. 7. This is the first time I have been live. Really enjoying being able to hang out here and chat. 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. I have my cone of yarn down by my feet, so I don't have to worry too much about pulling yarn off the cone because gravity helps with that a bit. Because it's directly below. Don't have the friction as much as I would if it were on the tabletop next to me. Alrighty, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, there's 7 stitches. I have a cake in the oven.
Yeah, I can hear you.
For going over to my in-laws tomorrow. I'm going to be celebrating my kiddos' birthdays, even though they're not in October. Your birthdays aren't in October, but this was the first opportunity we've had because our falls have been absolutely hectic this year. Not just for us, but for everybody in the family. So, my in-laws were all like, we want to get together, we want to celebrate the kids' birthdays. So, this being the first weekend we've had the majority of people free, I know at least one of them won't be able to come because he has to work. But I think the majority of them will be able to make it. And so I've made a cake. It's in the oven right now. There's probably, let's see, 5-ish minutes left on the timer. So then I get to check it, see how it's doing. And then if it's
Back up, Jill. There's
done,
a help on there.
if it's done, I can put it to cool on the rack here and make some frosting.
I wasn't
If
sure we
it's
were.
not quite done, it goes back in the oven for another 5 minutes. And probably I'll still make the frosting at that point, but it really depends.
Are you kidding me? I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die.
Really depends on how things work out. 7. Another column. I've gotten a good bit done this evening. It's probably about doubled, close to about doubled what I had done on this row when I started the live. Whoops, looks like I only did 6 stitches in this cluster. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep. So 1, 2, 3, and then right in between 3 and 4. So I am not going all the way back. I've been
You're fine.
working on this for this row probably has taken, I've been on this row for probably 30 minutes, 40 minutes, something like that. Ooh, timer just beeped, which means there's 1 minute left. So I will finish this. Got 5 stitches there. I'll do the last 2 stitches. And then I will go bring the cake over to check on it. See if it's
Put it in
done.
the air.
I'm gonna put the first stitch and the chain in there. We're gonna move this out of the way. Put my yarn back in the basket. Take a sip of water. And grab my thin mitts. Move this front and center. Let's see if this is cooked. It doesn't look like it quite is, just from the cracks, but we'll check it out. Grab his bit. Pull it out. Nope, not quite done. Actually, I'd say it's more doughy than I expected, so I might even put it in for another 10 minutes.
Just tossed it.
Alright, timer is on for another 10 minutes. Whoops, just stuck my finger on it.
I say, if you want to quit this and go to a level 7, I'm fine with that.
Move that back out of the way. I'll go clean my toothpick. There we go. Toothpick is cleaned off. Set there. Go give my hands a quick wipe down. Don't want to get anything sticky on the baby dress. Probably just gonna get out the ingredients for the frosting and a bowl. And then I'll go back to work on the baby dress for now. There's a bowl. A partial stick of butter from the previous recipe. that into the bowl. And get some coconut oil.
Like I said to you when I was also playing with Zeb earlier, the beach is not pretty.
Powdered sugar. I'll grab out the milk when I'm ready to make the frosting so it doesn't get too warm.
I mean, it's nothing like the creek, but for a lot of people, this is like the new creek just because this has been player lore instead of game lore.
I'm getting a spoon. I'm going to take my coconut oil. And get a spoonful. That's it. It's about the same amount, maybe a little bit less. There we go. That's probably about the same amount coconut oil as butter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go put this on the stove right over the heat vent. So this will all turn liquid by the time I'm ready to use it. While I was at it, I put the coconut oil away because that goes in the cupboard right next to the stove. Move the powdered sugar out of the way, and then I need a sieve so I don't end up with clumps. No! I have my little sifter. Set that over by the powdered sugar. And I'm going to refill my drink. Drink water. Hydration is important. Right. There's about 5 minutes left on the timer. My hands are getting a little bit sore from the very small crochet. So I'm going to grab out this project. Use the skein to hold my loop so I don't lose my spot. Yes, I was doing double crochets. This is much easier on my hands and on my eyes. So this is the normal progression of evenings for me. Once the kids are in bed, I do some cooking, or I sit down and crochet, or I go down into my office and sew. I call it my office, but it's really a giant craft room. It was set up the house was set up so that it was a bonus room in the basement. Mostly finished.
Harvester.
But it can't be used as a bedroom because it doesn't have a window large enough to be considered a safe egress in the event of a fire. So you'd have to go out the door and up the stairs and all of that. So it can't be a bedroom. But it's about the same size as the bedrooms. A small bedroom, I'd say. So I have a table and a desk. Use the table to lay out my fabric and cut it. And then I have my sewing machine on the desk. I just did a treble crochet because my brain was working on the dress. have a cupboard with all of my fabric, well, a majority of my fabric, I should say. It's not all of it. I have to reorganize it in order to get the rest of it in. But I have, it's a hutch technically, with a glass front so I can see all of my fabric lined up. And then it's, then I have some drawers underneath the countertop area where I have my fat quarters and some pre-cuts.
Okay.
Rather than yardage. And I have all my cones of yarn that do not have current project attached to them lined up on the top of the hutch, along with all of my patterns and books and all of that stuff. I have on one end of it, and the cones cover the rest of it. Need to get down there and clean a little bit, organize, because it's been so long since I've been able to go down there and actually work on it. It's gotten used a little bit as a storage area. It's slowly starting to creep in. Plus, I was given a bunch of fabrics and yarns when my grandmother-in-law passed away earlier in the year. And that she had already given me a bunch of her sewing stuff. And so it was passed along to me when she passed. My mother-in-law gave me a bunch of the stuff. I would use it. And the timer just beeped again. So let's do that. Put that around. Let's move this forward. Grab my oven mitts and let's see if the cake is done this time. Where's the kitty? Ah, that looks much better. Let's check and see if it's done.
Behind you.
There you did. Pull it out. Yeah, there we go.
The last ones are going in right
Cake's
now.
done. So we'll set that to the side to cool. Ooh, kitty. You can see my kitty's paws in the background there. Alrighty. Hi, kitty. You need to stay away from the cake. Just trying to get to her food dish. Alright. The frosting coconut oil and butter mixture is almost melted. But I think I'm probably going to call it a night here and go spend some time with my husband. So thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it and hope you have a great night. Bye. Bye.